strong respect and support for police and law enforcement, and also note my strong insistence that the rule of law apply to all, regardless of whether a person is a civilian or law enforcement. Now, the failure to prosecute police officers, militarized police responses to peaceful protests, and video footage of people dying by the hands of law enforcement have led us to where we are today. While discussing police accountability is an essential way to improve the relationship between the community and law enforcement, I hope that this committee will hold additional hearings that will allow us to specifically focus upon grand jury reform, use of body cameras, and the DOJ's data collection and transparency practices. Before we witnessed the militarization of police in Missouri, I had been working on Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act, which prevents local police forces from receiving MRAPs, tanks, and other weapons left over from the war. And I'm very grateful and humbled that President Obama on yesterday issued an executive order that virtually ends the 1033 program. And I've also introduced the Grand Jury Reform Act, which calls for the use of special prosecutors and independent law enforcement agencies when there has been a police killing. And also I've introduced the Police Accountability Act, which would expand the DOJ's authority to bring charges against law enforcement officers. Sir, have you ever heard the name Ariston Waiters before? I'm sure that you haven't. He was just a 19-year-old unarmed black male, just a typical unarmed black male down in Union City, Georgia, who was shot while laying on his stomach, shot twice in the back by a law enforcement officer, a police officer from Union City. Shot twice in the back at close range. The officer who killed Mr. Waiters allegedly exhibited signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. He was an Afghanistan war veteran. According to the Anxiety Disorders Association of America, there are 40 million adults in the United States over the age of 18 who suffer from anxiety disorders. 7.7 million of those Americans suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm concerned about the role mental health issues play in officers using excessive force against civilians. We've talked about police officers receiving training on how to apprehend people suffering from mental illnesses, but what is your department doing to make sure that officers themselves aren't suffering from mental illnesses?
Mr. Chair, Congressman, that is one of the most difficult situations that law enforcement officers today are dealing with, the mentally ill.
Well, I'm saying in terms of, would you agree that there must be some out there among the 7.7 million Americans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder who are law enforcement officers? You would not deny that, would you?
I don't have any data to refute it.
Well, but would you think that there may be some cases where there are officers who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and who are serving currently in law enforcement?
If I had to guess, yes. I had such a situation with one of my patrol sergeants who served in the first Gulf War, I believe, and he slapped around a handcuffed prisoner. I not only had him charged with the felony, he went to prison for 18 months.
Well, you're to be commended for that. And
it was a hard thing to do.
Does your department have a system of monitoring police officers or your officers periodically just to determine whether or not they have any mental health issues that could impede their ability to protect and serve the people?
No, not a systematic one. We have our standard early warning system
Do you think it would be wise for the federal government? I noticed that in your statement, you say that police use of force, I'm quoting you, police use of force should be scrutinized locally, that is. Does that mean that you don't think that the federal government should concern itself with these issues at all?
It's not that I don't think the federal government should concern itself. I think the federal government should observe what's going on across the nation with all of these issues, but I think it's a slippery slope.
You say that it should be scrutinized locally, though. Does that mean to the exclusion of the federal government?
Well, if I can finish the sentence.
The time of the gentleman has expired, but the witness is allowed to answer the question.
Thank you.
Sure, it should be scrutinized, without a doubt.
Well, thank you.